I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And today we have two very special guests with us. We have Josh and Tarrie. They are paranormal investigators here in Savannah, and Josh actually went viral on TikTok for having this super freaky TikTok of Hillcrest Abbey Cemetery here in Savannah.
This security guard works at a cemetery and has crazy paranormal experiences while at work, so we started recording the moments.
So I'm actually hearing something banging on the door. I'm hoping I'm going to catch this son of a bitch. The door was open again. Hello, security. Hello. Hey, you need to come out. I'm not playing anymore. I don't know where the hell these people are or where. Jesus fucking Christ.
He's even had multiple moments where you can actually hear voices inside the cemetery building.
Anybody in here? Hello? Yeah, but listen, you got to get out of here. You're going to have to come talk to me, okay? Where you at? I can't see you. You're correct, so you need to come out, okay?
And one night, he got called about a flickering light inside the church, so we went to go check it out.
Okay, guys. I'm really not sure what's going on here. Nope. Yeah, I'm fucking done. This is some spooky fucking shit going on here. This is why my security officer fucking quit.
And all sorts of crazy stuff going on. But I'm going to give it to y'all real quick just to introduce yourselves. But
I'm Joshua Runyan.
And I'm Tarrie.
Awesome. And what's your paranormal investigation group?
So we're Paranormal Security 9886. Awesome. We have a YouTube channel. We do everything on live. That's what we primarily do is the best we can. If we are in a situation where we can do it live, we like to do it live. That we can pick up stuff it's just easier to pick up stuff. I mean, we just found that it's easier to do that and interact with our fans, and they see things and hear things. So it's kind of taking them on that journey with us.
And the amount of stuff that they see that we didn't see during the investigation, they either bring it up during the live or after the live. We'll get a bunch of pictures sent back to us and say, did you guys notice this dark shadow standing behind you? Or did you hear this woman screaming in the background? And so it's pretty wild to hear back also afterwards when we come back from an investigation, the stuff that people seen and caught, and send us all the stuff along with it. So
timestamp it. They're really good about timestamping it. That's the best part about it. We've got a few people that actually go through our videos frame by frame, whether it's an hour or whatever, and they will give us every word that they heard, everything. They will take everything out. So
that's fantastic. And, it's interesting because it had been remarked many times that when you take a large party with you to a ghost hunt, it oftentimes creates a sort of a vacuum. Like the activity dims. The more people involved, you're basically dissipating the spiritual energy there. So having a small group going in, but hundreds of eyes on you, that's an amazing way to conduct an investigation. Having more people involved that aren't right there scaring away the ghosts or disturbing the area so much that the ghosts feel reluctant to show themselves. So that's a brilliant way to go about an investigation.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk some more about their experiences and whatnot, but before we get into that, we do have some announcements to make. So we are going to be having our Halloween merch drop, which is going to be super exciting. We've got shirts, we've got fanny packs, we've got beautiful sweatpants because they got a little ghost on the booty, which is real cute. We've got all sorts of really cool stuff for y'all. If you're a Parajunkie, you are going to be getting a nice special discount, and we're working on getting you guys like a little secret shop or something. So definitely, if you are not already a Parajunkie over on Patreon, definitely consider doing that. Also, this episode is sponsored by the Forsyth Park Costume Crawl that's happening on October 30th. It is their first year doing this, which is super exciting. It is a charity event for some local kids, a school here in Savannah. So it's definitely a good thing to attend anyways, but it is a costume contest that JT and I are actually going to be VIP judges for. So if you are in Savannah on October 30th, if you want to meet us, definitely consider coming out. But some different categories that they have. The lowest, you can win money from this, so big perk on that. But the lowest one is at $200 is what you could win. Is their social media banshee category, which I'm assuming is, like a social media themed sort of costume. Then they have, you can win $200 off of having a really cute pet costume because they have the best pet costume contest. I'm very much so looking forward to that. There's the best big kid costume, which is kids 9 and over. You can win $200. Best little kid costume, ages 9 and under. You can win $200. Best couple costume, $400. Best adult costume, $400. Best group costume, $500. And for those of you who love Savannah's history, this is your category. They have the biggest prize, the grand prize, for $1,000, the best Spirit of Savannah costume. So if you have a good, like googly eyes statue costume, or, you want to be the Forsyth Park fountain, like go hard, be creative. It's for a good cause. They do early registration still, so that's going to be $15 to register for that. Highly encourage you doing that because on the day of, the price goes up. So if you're looking to enter, go ahead and check them out. You can find them on Facebook under Forsyth Park Costume Crawl. Awesome. So with that, maybe y'all will be coming and seeing it. Who knows? So.
Absolutely, 100%. Sounds fun.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun time. But yeah, so how did you get into ghost hunting? Did you try to become a security guard to be able to ghost hunt, or did it just happen upon you?
It just happened upon me. Most people think that I stayed there 24 hours a day, or that was where my shift was for 12 hours or whatever. We had other apartment complexes we had to patrol, so we were a smaller company, so we were back and forth, and I was more or less a supervisor. They took upon that because, as most people know, there's a Catholic cemetery right next to it, so we actually had both of those. I was on the fence line with ghost most of my life. As a kid, we ghost hunted and stuff, but the first going out there, it was the eerie feeling. This is awful. And then it was like, okay, I can go in the very back and I can have my lunch and I can relax. Nobody's going to bother me, and then it just kind of started when I started getting out of my vehicle and I actually started patrolling and I started paying attention to certain things, especially whenever there's a lightning storm. I've always noticed when we have a lightning storm out there and it's hovering over that place, it's footprints, sounds. And initially with the main video that went viral of that thing walking down the road, I was just making a stupid TikTok. It was actually at the Krispy Kreme just before COVID had hit, and I knew a lot of the police officers within the Metro Police at the time. Of course, cops, security guard, donut shop, that fits in. That was the only place to go to get something sweet to eat and then run. And he's like, hey, we had a call earlier about some woman screaming in that area. And you patrol out there. Do you mind going out there? Because we don't want to go out there. Well, that did not spawn me at all to why a policeman did not want to go out there.
Absolutely.
I was like, sure. I had rode around the first part. I didn't see anything. Started making a stupid TikTok. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go to the far back end. I know there's a lot of sexual stuff and drugs that go on out there. Maybe I'll catch somebody. At that point, that's when I was still rolling the video. And I was like, what the, and I started rolling that. I was new at TikTok. It was supposed to just be a stupid little video of a creepy area. And then all of a sudden I see that. And for that thing to go from there and then move over to that other side. I've averaged that. Should have took a normal human being about 10 minutes to walk over there, even run over there.
Sure.
A vehicle took me 2 minutes to get over there, and somehow this same creature was over here luring me away and then gone. And the way my vehicle was positioned, if he would have jumped the fence or whatever the case might be, I'm just claiming it's a he. I'm not 100% sure. But if it would have went that way, I would have seen some kind of movement or shadow going through there. And my first thought is, they're messing with me. They know we're out here, but what I have explained to her, and she's gone out there multiple times. My scariest thing is we were armed. I did have a firearm. I had a Glock. I had a taser, and there's many of times that I had to draw my weapon because I don't know where I'm coming into. I don't know what I'm going to. And that scared me that this could just be a kid. This could just be somebody in the neighborhood messing with me. But as it started progressing, and then you start talking to cops more, then you realize why they don't want to go out there, why they refuse to go out there. We don't know what's going on out there, but this place has a mind of its own. We choose not to go out there. You go out there,
Right.
So, and that's what I got paid for. But we were constantly losing people, people that were going out there when I was off that would cruise out there. They're like, no, I'm done. I'm gone. Yeah. We had one guard that was like, I'm absolutely going to the Marines. I'd rather go deal with that than deal with this crap out here. And that was straight up. Yeah.
Wow. When they want to go to war over going to Hillcrest Abbey.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
That was the scariest part. I guess the story behind it, why I don't patrol it anymore, is we kind of lost the contract. And then with any social media, y'all do this, so y'all know you get crazy people come out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And a lot of people misunderstood me for a police officer. They thought I was a city employee, that I was being paid by the city, contracted through the city and working for the city. I was not a sworn police officer in any way, shape, or form. So they were calling the police department. You've got an officer out here wasting time and doing this and doing that. And then people writing emails that all got back. There's 3 owners to that place, and they all based out of New Jersey. So it was kind of, as we saw the activity, I tried to go out there as much as I could when I was off too. And I had another guard that was out there with me, and we would go out there. And one day, 6 police officers pull up. The caretaker pulls up. He's like, we've banned every one of your security guards, and you're the only 2 that we need to ban. And that was the end of story. All because people wanted to make false allegations that I was disrespecting someone. I was showing, I never had intentions of showing any of those loved ones out there. I'm very respectful for the dead. I'm a Christian myself, and I'm not going to go out there and disrespect somebody that's buried. But if I just happen to stroll through and catch somebody's name, well, that's an accident,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I made the place famous. I know that. So I think they've kind of backed off because I know they have a lot of people wanting to be buried out there. They have plots. I saw on Facebook they have 2 plots out there for sale right now. Wow. And they were gone within a couple of days because people want to bury out there. So,
apparently.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that's so unfortunate.
It is.
It's especially in a place like Savannah where we honor our dead. And,
yes, 100%.
It's that's very sad to hear, but maybe as it kind of goes away from that time of tension, maybe they'll be a little bit more open.
Yes, it's getting there slowly but surely.
They may have banned him, but they didn't ban me.
That's true.
And luckily, she does have a family member that's out there, so she's full legally. There's no signs out there. They put no gate. There's no nothing. So
No.
How are you preventing somebody?
It is one of the best places for beginning ghost hunting, to find out what it's like to be in a situation in a place. I started ghost hunting there in the 90s.
Correct.
And we saw all kinds of strange and peculiar, we have pictures and, long lost because, and I've discussed this before, I'm not really a ghost hunter in the most typical sense. I go for the experience. I go for the sensation. I go for the feeling. I don't really keep a lot of evidence or anything like that because I never really thought about it for other people. I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for myself. So we did see, and it's funny because like in the years afterwards, strange and peculiar cryptids would like start to show up in press. Like people were pushing the rake for a long time. And I was like, I swear that's kind of what I saw in Hillcrest Abbey was a strange, gaunt, white thing, but it was strangely short. So it made me think that it was walking on its hands, like hands and legs, but I could never see its legs. So, and when we saw it, it was one of those things where it's like corner of the eye, look, it's not there, it's there, it's not there, it's there.
Right.
And we had this, and it was right around that Babyland section.
Yes.
Right there was where we would have the most. We thought that there are dogs out there a lot.
Yes.
And there no sign of dogs, but we heard dogs, like the running of a dog and the sound of it, and so it became like this great hotspot for like cutting your teeth because it's open, because it's easy to get out of. You're not going to be trapped there. Because that's the other thing is, like, if you go into a scary building that you don't know every nook and cranny of, if something scares you, you might back yourself into a corner that you can't easily get out of. Whereas the cemetery really has many roads out.
Yes.
And as long as you stay close enough to your car, you should be able to get out.
That's very true. So what would be your favorite ghost experience you've had since you've started investigating?
Chasing this child thing was my top favorite one, but I think as there was a video that I was walking up to past the church, I guess what you would call it, going into the crypt area, and you saw this thing standing there on the right hand side, and it's partially excuse me, when I actually had went back to upload the video and I was trying to tell everybody what was going on, that's when I saw it, because it started replaying, and that's what I've said multiple times. But I think the scariest and my favoriteest part from that particular place is when the lights were going on and off and the thing was screaming at me to get out. That's when I knew this gun, this taser, this flashlight, none of this pepper spray, none of this stuff is going, I can't lock this dude up. There's nothing to do. This is not a joke anymore. This is not somebody playing with me. They are playing with me, but this is not a human being. So, and I colorful words said, I'm out of here. This is my day off. Why am I even messing with this? You're not paying me enough to do this. I'm gone. Let the police handle this at this point. That's how I felt about it. So that was my favorite part. That was my scariest encounters, but the whole place is scary to me.
Absolutely. Terry, do you have a particular favorite experience?
Well, I would say the first time I investigated that place myself, I did see some of Josh's videos. I didn't see all of them at that point. So I went in kind of open-minded and wanting to experience something for the first time without having everybody's input. Well, this is what happens here and this is what happens there. I want to see what happens by myself without knowing anything about the place. And so I went walking down the corridor, I guess you could call it, where the mausoleum or the walls start, that people are buried there. And I followed it, trying to find my way to this mausoleum, and I didn't know where it was. I wasn't familiar with the property. But upon entering it, I had the feeling that there's something watching me. And so I keep walking, and I'm watching him on the channel, because we're doing this live on YouTube, and I'm trying to watch him under my username, and because I'm using his upload on the YouTube, and it's like, okay, keep going here, Terry, and take a right here, and there's also that delay. So I now see doors to the chapel, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the chapel, and it's locked. So I thought, okay, I'll go around the back, and I didn't realize at the time, but when I was walking up to the chapel, you could clearly see that all the lights were off inside this chapel. I go to the back door and I give it a little tug, and then I tugged again and the door actually opened. But the lights had come on from the point of me walking from the front to the back. So when I entered, the lights were on, and there's no light switches anywhere. And it's like, how did these lights go on?
They have them on timers. That's
what we thought.
That's one of the biggest things everybody was all at the time saying, oh, well, maybe you were just flicking the switches off. They're all on timers. You can very clearly go in there and see that they are set on timers to go off. I work there. Of course, I know when they go off and when there's not supposed to be lights on.
Meaning that they stay off all night long.
Well,
they don't just come on like a sensor.
Yeah,
sure.
So these lights were not supposed to come on, and they did turn on at that point. So I walked in there, and it was just this heaviness just hits you. And I remember looking around, and the hair's just standing up on the back of my neck, and people were hearing voices on the camera that I didn't hear with my own ears at the time. So I left that, and then I'm going into the mausoleum. And at the point where I take a first step up to go into it, I said, Josh, and I was saying, Josh, where do I go? Like, is this the place? But I said, Josh. And at that point, I heard a woman's voice, like a moan, go, "Huh." I swear, standing there, the person was literally 5 feet from me. and every hair, like my hair's standing up right now talking about it. And it was so loud, and I'm like, oh my God, is somebody in there? Like, am I going to walk in and somebody is going to attack me, or is this a spirit? Like, what the heck is this? So now I'm entering a building that, as you were mentioning a moment ago, you don't know if there's actually somebody in there, or am I hearing stuff? And upon going in there, there's nobody in there, and I realized that, yeah, this was paranormal. And as walking, I could hear footsteps behind me, and you could feel someone walking behind me. And people on the live are saying, I could hear footsteps. I could hear there's somebody behind you. So I'm reading all of this while I'm walking through this whole thing. This woman just screamed in my voice. There's no woman here. And it was just, it was crazy. And I've been back there a few times since, and there's always been, I can't say every time, because you can't expect to go, you can't expect to go somewhere and catch something every time.
Absolutely not.
And that's what people think a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Same thing with his videos. They're like, well, how come every time you go, you catch something? Well, you don't, because he's had 30 videos where he hasn't had anything. You don't post the 30 videos that they're just going to watch dead air.
happened, yeah.
Exactly.
So you're going to post the stuff that you do catch it. And that was the case here. So,
that was in the mix of me actually. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That was in the mix of me actually when I was just uploading them before I started doing the lives.
Sure. Yep.
So if I went back and listened to it or watched it or nothing happened, there was no point in me doing that. That's what I try to explain to people. I'm not going to just give you dead air.
Right.
Now we do it live, so if we don't catch anything, at least we have
But
that
it's interactive.
interaction with
Exactly.
somebody, and we get to talk from people from Scotland. Like you said, you went to Scotland. We get to talk to people. We have people from Australia, Canada,
all over
the
place.
world, the
Yes.
Philippines, and that's awesome. But it seems like every time we do that and we start getting off that topic and we start talking, that's when stuff starts happening.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, now you're not paying no attention to me, so I'm gonna prove you wrong, So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been wild.
Yeah.
Stuff, rocks being thrown, and
speaker.
Yeah.
We have Midway Cemetery. If y'all don't know if y'all are
I've
familiar with that
been to
place,
Midway many
Cemetery
times.
is awesome. That's our
it's
go-to
incredible.
place. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely at that mausoleum, it's an entity of itself, is how we describe it. It's
a heartbeat of itself.
A heartbeat of its
it's
own.
alive.
That
Yeah.
place has.
Absolutely.
And it's wild. And then, sorry, just to interject.
No, please.
There's that thing that happened in the 90s where a body was stolen from there.
No, it was in 2010. Y'all remember when one body was stolen and the police never found it at Hillcrest Abbey.
Yes.
They had removed them, the female, and that. Ever since I found that out and started researching that and read the reports on that stuff, that just started making more and more sense. Why is there a female?
Yeah.
Why the screaming? And there was one video where there was screaming going on, and that was just me literally just leaving my camera because you know what? I wanted to put that to bed.
yeah.
I wanted to put it to rest that there is nobody in here. Like I'm very good at what I'm doing. I'm very good at monitoring this, and I know that place like the back of my head. I mean, when you drive around it at night and during the day, you know it. I can tell you, there's just nobody out there. Nobody wants to go out there and sleep in that. Why?
No one's going to
you?
spend time there
No.
unless they are experiencing this very thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they're spooky like us. So yeah.
One of the things that I was going to interject while you're talking was this notion, because it's something that I hadn't really thought of, but we talk a lot about how supernatural events are linked to the use of electronics, the classic, the batteries drain, the things like that.
Yep.
I'm fascinated by the concept of what if by live streaming, whatever signal you're sending out is a new form of communicative or inspiring. So like if people are contacting you from all around the world utilizing this technology that is coming through the air magically and invisibly, it's one of those things where we have made commonplace wonders, marvels. You've got somebody from Scotland talking to you through a little box in your hand.
Yes.
And we think, that's technology. But what if you're in a supernaturally charged place? What if that type of signal is somehow giving energy, giving power, giving notice, or at the very least, raising curiosity.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yes.
I've never thought of that.
I know.
Well, it's
I
never
thought of that.
my arm right
Because-
now.
Yeah,
Got goosebumps here.
Yeah.
It's a new thing.
Yes.
Live broadcasting and things like that. But now we're not just live broadcasting using radio or television waves or satellite waves. We're using types of technology that 100 years ago, if I explained that to somebody, I'm going to send a video, a picture, a moving picture of you with sound.
You're going to be burned at the stake.
Witchcraft.
But isn't that really what a ghost is anyway? It's some kind of transmission that we're receiving from some unknown source.
Right.
So when you introduce that element,
An energy, yes.
Yeah, an energy. I think live broadcasting ghost hunts might be the next big tool jump. When you think about it, because the question is, do you find that you have more activity when you're live streaming than when you're, going out on your own? Would you say that you have more success live streaming because you have all those people watching, you have all those people looking, and that's a lot of interest without a lot of expense, meaning spiritual expense.
Yes.
For every person that is present in a haunted location, the spiritual cost is high because we, just like the spirits, have to consume energy. We are consuming energy.
Right.
We are putting out energy. We're heat sources. We're, all these things are happening. But if you don't have a crowd with you, but you do have the attention of hundreds of people, that's a new avenue. A new way to think about ghost hunting is maybe every ghost hunt we go on, we should do some kind of form of live broadcast. We are just now dipping our toes into more organized ghost hunts.
Correct.
Because I have a long history of just running into dark places, screaming, and then running out.
Yes.
That is my MO for ghost hunting. But hearing you tell this story, I'm like, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
That because what you were saying was, when we're paying attention to this, the ghosts are like, pay attention to me.
Yes.
And I'm like, that is interesting. I like that. I like that as a notion. This is not a declaration of truth. It's just how interesting that we haven't really
you're
explored
right on
that.
it. Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine the breakthrough heard here live.
Yes, that's what we're here to do.
That's it.
Yes.
Well, I always conjecturize that in 100 years from now, picking up a box and talking to a dead relative will probably be commonplace, and they'll be like, "Oh, you remember when they used to think this was scary? You remember when they used to, be afraid of ghosts?" Because what is, whatever we identify as the human spirit or the human soul, occupies space and must have an effect on it, and therefore must be transmittable. Must be in some way transmittable. So that's a future that I think we're on the cusp of. The more we learn about EMFs and the more we learn about, scanning radio waves for voices and things of that nature, maybe there is like a honing beacon, and it might be Wi-Fi. For all we know, it might be Bluetooth. It might be whatever those technologies are that are powering our communications. Because really, what is it but looking for a way to communicate?
House on Haunted Hill, if you remember the very first one, not the old one, but the newer one.
Yes.
When the ghosts were typing all the
That's
guests.
right. They were making emails
and they
and
sent
stuff.
it through the internet.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how everybody just mysteriously got that. So you may have something
Well, I
there.
want to say that there's a long string of telephone ghost
Yeah,
stories.
I would believe so,
Phones ringing and picking it up and hearing voices from and even. Poltergeist, the movie, has the girl picking up a toy phone to talk to her grandmother.
Yes.
Which is one of those things that I think is a common enough occurrence that will remark it, and they're like, well, there's some kind of communication through the lines going through the electricity and blah blah blah. Not to be too technical, blah blah blah.
You're right.
Yeah, right.
But it does beg the question: are we infringing on what was once only held for spirits?
Right.
This type of communication where it's invisible, moving through the air, and being heard through the use of some divining box. When my voice goes into a phone and goes out into the airwaves and comes back into another box, is that not a spiritual thing in essence.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it my voice being transmitted and heard on a box?
Yes.
far away.
Yes.
So maybe we are this close to being able to make cell phone calls to the dead.
Well, I mean, did you see the film Black Phone?
I was
Yes, I was thinking Black Phone too.
That was a great movie, actually. I really enjoyed it.
If you haven't seen it, it's an excellent movie. Very good ghost movie. But it kind of goes off of that notion, this phone that's not hooked up to anything, but they're able to communicate with the dead, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And I won't go too more into detail so I don't spoil it for y'all. But,
I mean, even one of the most harrowing experiences I ever had involved a phone that had been pulled out of the wall and continued to ring. And it's just one of those things where that type of story is not uncommon. You've actually people have heard this story before and the phone wasn't hooked up but it was ringing and that creates this intrigue of modern ghost hunting.
Yes.
And even 10 years ago, the concept of live streaming like video content on your phone 10 years ago was still like that's kind of cagey. That would be just a tuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just watching every 5 seconds going, I think that's something.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting that you bring up the live stream stuff because I haven't been able to live stream in a while because it's been Halloween season for some time now, and I was doing like live streams in different places around Savannah just to like answer people's questions, but I don't typically pick up on stuff in Colonial Park Cemetery. Like it's there's activity there, but I wouldn't say it's like the most haunted cemetery in the world.
No.
And
and because it's tread over, there's plenty of small interactions that might equal something, but
yeah, exactly.
The disbursement.
But it was interesting when I was on live stream with, these viewers and they're asking me questions. I'm not paying attention to anything around me. I'm just answering these questions. They all noticed my like demeanor change because I was like, oh, like my chest hurts. Like, there's something nearby that I'm like, oh, sorry, y'all, like can't breathe right now, and I don't have asthma or anything, but they all know that I'm very sensitive to that sort of stuff. I can see spirits, I can feel them, and so they're all in the comments just like, oh my God, what's happening? Are you sensing something? Like, but it was interesting because I've never had that experience in that cemetery since.
Well, let's not forget that JT's most significant ghostly encounter came through a video call.
Yeah.
While you were at the Davenport house. So, actual video, and I believe we have screenshots of it, of a ghost boy appearing in the Davenport house while talking through the video phone. And that was one of those things where we were actually discussing that just recently about, the holder of the phone is sensitive, so it's possible that the compounded interest of the phone and the person holding it allowed for
that's the photo.
There it is. Look.
Ta-da.
That is unreal.
Was not there.
Mm-hmm. That was not there. I was in the house by myself. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you see how they can manifest that detail just like in
yes,
my video.
It's just like your video.
Just like
that
same
look
type
at my
of,
I got goosebumps running all over my arms. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah,
that is wild.
And the internet loved to roast us for the quality of the photo, but it's really
but it's a video phone call.
Well,
it's FaceTime,
it was
right?
FaceTime and a screenshot in the dark because there's no electricity on the upper floor. So it was like I literally had my janky work walkie-talkie that had a light on it or whatever, and that was the only light that we had. Wow.
It doesn't look like he has any arms either.
Or else he's
got him. He's tucked in
or something.
That is.
You could clearly.
That's a child.
That is wild.
That is unreal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It is unreal.
Well, and it's so interesting because I was just in between tours when this happened. So because I was in the house by myself, I was like, hey, like let me call JT and show him like the spooky house, because I love the Davenport house. It's so haunted, especially with kid ghosts, and so. I literally was just planning to take him up to the Haint Blue attic to show him all the spooky stuff that happens up there. And I wasn't anticipating to see anything because I had just been up there like maybe an hour earlier to get like the ropes and stuff to rope off that area. And JT saw it and he goes, "What is that?" And I'm like,
so then this is live. He's like, "There's something behind you."
Yeah.
Or
well, yeah, I was
it's
like,
in the house.
Yes. Well, he had never seen a ghost. Like, obviously he believed me when I told him that I saw stuff, you know, but he was just like, "Oh my God, you need to get out. Do I need to come over there?" You know, I was like, "No, it's fine. I'll just go downstairs and eat my Cheetos and I'll just like let it be," you know.
Yeah.
It didn't really want me there, you know, because I was, you know, of course wearing a period accurate, you know, Victorian gown. And I'm like, I look like the enemy, you know, like I was not, you know, the person that this kid wanted to see. And I was like, cool, you go about your things. I'm going to go down here, enjoy my break, and then we'll reconvene later, I guess.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
But definitely a cool experience.
Oh, absolutely. And
That is
and
amazing.
now JT runs a paranormal podcast.
Yes.
So, you know,
Yes.
it definitely, it shows you how quickly things escalate. From the moment that you first have an encounter to the moment that you are drowning in, you know, a phenomena. It's a very short trip. And, you know, once you've seen something that you can't refute, you spend a lot of your time trying to refute it.
Yes.
Trying to replicate it or prove that it didn't happen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Those two warring factions within you are the hallmark of ghost hunting. It's you want to be able to validate your experience while at the same time hoping that you'll find an explanation that can put it to rest. Because if you can't put it to rest, it will drive you, you know, to do all kinds of crazy midnight tours of cemeteries and and things of that nature.
But that's the fun of, you know, getting into ghost hunting is just like, you know, getting to learn more about it. And the more experiences you have, the more you learn about like what happens on the other side. And like also it's a good avenue for people to get into the history of their areas, you know.
Yes.
Which I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily learn about until they have like a paranormal experience, and they're like, I need to study, you know, the land that my house was built on.
right.
And it's like, it's so fun. But I do always like hearing people's reasoning of why they got into ghost hunting, and y'all definitely have a very intense story. Now, do you have like any investigations that you're looking forward to like doing soon, or?
There's quite a few
there
places.
is.
Yeah, we want to do a few places. There's actually, I had done a few videos. My brother's a police officer, or was a police sergeant in Kingsland, Georgia.
Oh, sure.
He left to go work for the Oregon State University Police. It was a newer department, so we went down there while she was in Canada, and thank God he was a police officer because he knew all the other cops and all the haunted places. So I got a lot of good access to a lot of places. We got a cemetery where they buried all the yellow plague people, and this was called St. Mary's, Georgia. It's a very small little port town, almost like Thunderbolt here.
Okay. Yep. St. Mary's.
It looks just like that. The cops came and they were telling us stories like this house, and we get called out here every October now. If it would have been a little bit earlier, the cop told us, I could have got you a key to it and I would have let you in there. I'm not going in there, but I don't have the key to it
But
right
you
now.
can go. Yeah.
You can go. We can walk around it talking about little kids, the history. So I want to get her down to those places because I think those are places. And then the cemetery that we found closes at 7. But thank God the sheriff's deputies showed up at the same time, and they're like, hey, come down here. This gate's open. We don't patrol down here. Go.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful cemetery. It was literally, it reminded you of Savannah. The same concept, like Bonaventure and all that old stuff with the marsh and the marsh, whatever that stuff is that hangs in the tree.
The Spanish moss.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it goes from here to just back, and then it just keeps going and going. And I'm like, this would be a place that we got to come out here for at least an hour and scour through it.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's also a couple places in Savannah here that we're waiting to hear back on.
Moon River.
Moon River's one of them.
That's one place I've always wanted to go to.
The Gray Face is another. Because
Yes.
Just investigated that one. Who it was wild.
Is it good?
was?
Yeah,
It's wild
we've
in there.
been in there multiple times ever since they opened that place. So we've wanted to go. And the guy, we meet the owner every time just about we go in
Yes.
there, and he's very open. And
Oh, yeah.
you
Oh,
think
yeah,
he'd
yeah,
be
yeah.
stuck up, and he's not. He's
Nope.
very just chill. So we're we're just waiting on the tourists to leave Savannah right now.
Well, yeah, November should be a pretty quiet time.
Yes, it should be.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Brian and Chloe, the owners of Graveface, they actually are our next door neighbors.
Okay,
which
cool,
is,
cool,
so
cool. Good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So they were like, yeah, absolutely, come investigate. And we found some crazy stuff in there, particularly up in the serial killer room.
Yes.
And the cult room.
But even down in the clown room,
The most interactive was down in the clown room. The
Yeah.
most
Really?
oppressive was up in the serial killer room.
yes, the serial killer and cult rooms were just like, it was almost too much information that we were getting, that we couldn't process who is giving what. It was almost like every entity inside that room or attached to anything was like, yes, here's me. You know, we got
A big pile of narcissists.
looking for attention, not necessarily narcissists, but you know,
Serial killers are generally narcissists.
yes. Oh, I'm talking about the victims. You know,
okay.
but
I honestly don't know that we were dealing with that many victims. Well, at least in the serial killer room.
yes, in the cult room, maybe.
In the cult room, it seemed like there seemed to be because there are crime scene photos there as well.
And there's
So
a
that-
spinal. There's a spine cord
And a
from
spinal
the
cord
devil,
from Anton
the
LaVey.
Lucifer or the devil person. Yeah.
Yes.
You got all that. Yeah.
The it was funny. One of the first things I picked up on was neck, and then it was cut or slit or something like that. And Chris was over in the serial killer room right next to me, so he goes, "Oh, the O.J. Simpson photos right there."
She's standing right next to these photos of people with their necks, splayed open.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And then it moved over to the Jim Jones, sort of his sunglasses. There was a ton of energy picking up on there, because I had brought my pendulum to kind of gauge, like, I was like, if there's something, in here, like, point me to where you want me to be, so I can concentrate on something.
Right.
And it was just pulling right to those glasses. And at first I thought it was going to be the Flavor Aid packets,
Yeah.
I was like, maybe there's some like residual energy there, but we were picking up on like the word stroke. There was, and he had a stroke apparently from like drug use and whatnot. So he had a stroke. And then we were also just picking up on like grandson, aunt. We were asking it if you were a follower, and it was kind of giving us the indication that it was, So a lot of Jonestown sort of stuff happening, in that room specifically, which is not what we anticipated finding.
Well, it's not, because it seemed to be much more overpowering things. But it's one of those things where you're really talking about the condition of faith, especially how it plays into your death. And when you're dealing with like cults, death cults especially, you're now dealing with people whose faith led to their death.
Yes.
And so that's a very strong bond to a spiritual notion. But you'll have a blast. It's
you will
incredible.
have such a good time.
Moon River is one of the most intensely aggressive places to hunt. So I give you advance warning to be
We're
mindful.
all for that. We always we always seem to miss it because we either get it right when tourist season, they're like, well, because they're cool with it. I mean, I have spoke to them.
Yeah.
They're not opposed to it.
No.
It's just, well, I need to kind of have somebody here, like, but
exactly.
we don't want to be here until 5 o'clock in the morning either.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I just need a good hour to run through that. And
Sure.
I have my different ways of doing things. In my older days, I used to call it out. I was a big, what was his name? Zach Bell.
Baggins,
I was all about that, man. And I was actually on an episode with him like before COVID hit down in New Orleans. I was down there for about 10 minutes. So he was awesome. And I was like, why do you do that? And he's like, because you got to tell them who they are. You got to call them out, man.
No. And
you try to back off of that a little bit after you start really making them mad. So
I have basic theories about things like that because at least in that occurrence, I think that a lot of people have spirits attached to them.
Yes.
And oftentimes when they're doing that aggressive behavior and getting response, they are actually interacting with a spirit that is attached to them, not the spirit of the location.
Correct.
Because it's familiar feelings, they call by name. There's all kinds of things that seem to be indicators that you're not really dealing, because you have to be receptive to the area.
Correct.
But when you bully your way in, whatever's there goes away.
Yes, you're right.
It goes into hiding, and not all times, but generally speaking, you shouldn't antagonize
No.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about, if somebody walked into your house and was like, "Who are you? Get up here!" You're going to be like, "I'm going into the other room."
Literally.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going out the back door and calling cops.
It's funny. He is kind of like the face of, I don't know if y'all watch like cooking competition shows. JT and I love them, but there's Halloween Wars.
Halloween.
We used to watch
all the
them.
time. Yeah.
So Zach Bagans is now like their face, and
I didn't know that actually.
Lord Almighty, I've spoken about how I feel about how he goes towards things and whatnot, but this past season has been his. All the competitions are based around his experiences that he's had. And I'm just like watching these things. And the first episode was in New Orleans and it was supposed to be about Marie Laveau. And they're like, we contacted Marie Laveau and she scratched and bruised us. I'm like, Marie Laveau is never the type of person that, was going to be aggressive or any sorts of like.
And if you're getting scratched everywhere you go,
right. So,
do you really think that it's a different thing that's scratching you? I mean, let's face it. If you got a scratchy ghost, you got a scratchy ghost. And
true.
you can't just keep changing its name and thinking that, we met this ghost and it scratched me. It's like,
Yes.
It kind of does come down to this sort of, and it's interesting because even Zach over the years, if you watch it, kind of slowed his role, not nearly as aggressive. And I think it's because you learn.
There's a lot of secrets behind that you learn from when you talk to the right type of people. So the aggression, I think, was primarily for the show.
For the show.
Really
Absolutely.
And people liked that. They liked that he was not scared, but he's like, I'm scared to death, man. But at the same time, it's also TV.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We need to always look at
Absolutely.
it that way, that it's always TV. And that's what I try to tell people about my channel. I am not TV. I'm doing my live. I'm not using this fancy stuff. What I pick up is what I pick up.
Sure.
Make your decision. If it's paranormal, it's paranormal. If we figure out that it's not paranormal, we're first ones to say no.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're the same way. We're very much so like, this is what we found. And like, granted, spooky stuff happens around us often, and that's fine. But like Chris and I, when we started the investigation at Graveface, we were like, we might not find anything,
Right.
and that's totally fair because most of the time the ghost hunts are boring.
Yeah, that's my big thing.
Yeah.
Ghost hunts are generally boring.
Yes.
You can't expect there to be,
Exactly.
Something,
an apparition, a full-bodied apparition in every ghost hunt.
Exactly.
And I've been on so many ghost hunts. I've taken so many pictures and so much video, and only a fraction of them come back with meaningful content.
Yes. Yes.
And that brings us to this place where it's like, don't expect to have every ghost hunt, play out like a TV show or,
Yes.
an episode
exactly right.
of hunting. And really importantly, don't think that going to a place once for a few hours really does represent the whole of the story of the place. If you don't experience something, that's kind of par for the course, but that isn't the authority to say, well, there's nothing here.
Correct.
Exactly.
This place
Correct.
isn't haunted because I didn't see anything in
Correct.
the 4 hours that I spent out of its entire history
Correct.
in this
Exactly.
building. So, it's definitely one of those things that you learn how to temper your expectations, because it's really just about being open and receptive. Do you have a process to your hunt? Is it just a let's just wander, let's just feel it out?
It's wonder, but we also, like with Midway Cemetery, we did like to get the history. Now going into Hillcrest Abbey, I didn't have any history. Nobody told me the place was haunted.
Yeah, and I didn't.
I thought I was just I could have cared less. That stuff didn't bother me. I'm not as scared of the dark. I got a gun, man. You're not going to do anything to me, But we did learn a lot of the history as far as now the places we go, I want to hear as much history as I can. But pretty much it's just a wonder where we want to know where things have happened, and we want to try to. And so when we go like to Midway, the tree where the young man got killed and stuff like that, we try to channel that in, or hey, you know what, we've had stuff happen over here. Let's go over this way, and then we're going to work our way. And then some days we
just stop in somewhere and
we see it, and we're just like, let's check it out.
Yeah.
We actually just in our last question and answer period got a question about the walled-in body of the people working on the Factor's Walk, but Midway Cemetery, of course, famously has a cracked wall that it was believed that the slave that was building the wall died and was buried on the spot, and that crack always comes back. And they have done extensive work on it. It's not just plaster over; they've replaced the wall. They've done all kinds of foundation work. They've done all kinds of things, but that crack always comes back. And that was one of those. That's one of the great Midway ghost stories, because there's also the Confederate and Union soldier who were buried side by side. So people are like, "Oh, that's going to be a thing." So Midway Cemetery is worth the visit. Yes. I would also point you towards, since you're living in Hinesville, in the Fort Stewart is a massive base. People don't realize how big it is. Oh yes. Because there's only there's the populated area, but then there's all these tank trails and all these things like that.
We have to travel that.
If you go out into the tank trails, you will sometimes stumble upon small cemeteries.
We've seen those signs. Yes,
exactly.
Yes, we have seen the signs for them.
I propose to you. There's also the Witch's Graveyard in Allenhurst.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, we went to the Witch's Grave down in Kingsland. There's a Witch's Grave.
Sure.
Have you been to that one yet?
I have. Absolutely.
That one's wonderful. My brother was actually telling me quickly. He was telling me a quick story that when he got promoted to sergeant, he's like, I took all my new officers and I made them get out. Leave your gun in the car and take your flashlight and go. If you can make it out there, you can make it on my shift.
There you go.
Wow. So they are very strong, and he's very strong about leaving the quarter. And I do have a video older to where the grave was actually broke open. You could see the skeleton and the skull.
Oh yeah,
wow. Very disrespectful. I immediately notified my brother. He notified Camden County sheriffs, and that happened in
Allenhurst too. In Allenhurst, they literally took all the tombstones, the witches' actual tombstones, and rooted up the fence, because there was a fence that went down under the and came out of the ground, and they like tore and cut pieces of it away, and it was a nightmare for them. So they are very guarded out in Allenhurst, and if you show up late at night, you could get visited by police. But generally, when the police come, they just want to know who you are and what you're doing, and they'll judge you on the spot. It's like, are you vandals? Are you or are you just people who got wind of a story and followed it out here?
We're really big about calling local law enforcement. We go to different places because
very smart.
We've had absolutely no problems in Midway Cemetery, and then one day we had a guy on live. He's like, "Where's this at? Where's that?" So I'm just like, "Yeah, it's Liberty County." Da, da, da. I swear it was 10 minutes later. I see the lights coming, the spotlights coming, and I'm like, there's sheriffs here. And my problem is with ghost hunting, whenever the sheriff or the police show up, it kills the mood for me.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm done.
Yeah.
They were awesome deputies, very cool deputies. Like, oh, okay, our ghost, okay.
But it puts a cold.
Somebody just said something was going on. Well, okay, carry on, and they were gone.
After that, he's like, I'm done.
You have to be guarded about locations because even I knew it was Hillcrest Abbey immediately because I spent so much time there.
Good.
But I knew that it was not wise to broadcast it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people will take ownership of your experiences and then ruin them.
Yes.
Because like you say, this place is haunted. One of the famous haunted houses of the town is 432 Abercorn.
Yeah.
When the stories come out about it, and mind you, none of them true, at the very least conflated, but the sheer amount of people who just take ownership of a place because it interests them, it's like, slow your roll, step back.
Yes.
Don't be so pushy about these experiences because people do. They get vandalists. They want to take pieces of it home. They want to do all kinds of vandalism.
Never do that.
No, absolutely.
We always recommend anybody, if you want to go out there and do this, whether you like the police or you don't, just call the 911 dispatch, call the station house, ask to speak to a sergeant. Say, hey, listen, we're going out there. That way, when the 911 gets that, they're going to get that report. Sure. If they have to send a deputy or a police officer out there, they'll already know. Yeah. You can walk out really quick, send her out. I can go out real quick and say, hey, listen, we're just doing a ghost hunt. We already called. Yeah, I saw that.
And sometimes, sorry to interrupt, but sometimes when we do the lives, we also don't like to broadcast exactly where we are.
Smart. That's safety reasons.
Absolutely.
You don't want a crazy person
because a crazy person might show up.
That's
an invitation for a horror movie.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. Security guards and cops always go first. That's what I always say. So
That's very true. The honestly, most of the time, local law enforcement are very just chill about you, especially in smaller towns, because he gets people to come to their town.
And
so,
they also know the stories.
Yeah.
I've said many times before that cops are the best ghost story people because they are trained to pay attention to detail, and they are trained to get an answer. So when they don't have an answer, that's a much more compelling ghost story than your average person who has an experience, and what they're relaying to you is a bunch of feelings.
Yes.
Whereas when you talk to a cop about a paranormal investigation, they're usually telling you very distinct details, and they're shoring up the story to the point at which they no longer have information.
And
so it's very report oriented.
Yes, and police officers, as my brother says, that's not something you go out and talk about as an officer.
Oh, no.
I was a fireman
No.
for 10 years. Those are not experiences you just go talk to other people. So when you have somebody coming in and they're like, thank God you experienced this. Well, let me tell you this story. And one of my small videos, one more time, we actually had 5 deputies show up while me, my son, and Travis, my brother, were out there. And that's what they wanted to do. They were on their lunch break, and they're like, you know what? You've inspired us to go out here. So I have a video of these cops out there. So some of them are fun. Some of them are definitely out to get you, and they're just like, they don't care what you're doing. But for the most part, like you just said, you're going to get those stories out of them, and the detail and the detail to the evidence that they have witnessed.
Right.
And they're going to remember that because that's what they're trained to do.
Exactly.
So
and many times they're taking reports
they are,
while it's happening.
And just because they don't speak, they're just waiting for somebody like you to come along so they can tell their story. My wife doesn't believe me. Chief doesn't believe me. I'm not going to say that. I'm not getting but you're a ghost hunter. I'm going to tell you.
And we're no nonsense, and ghosts are nonsense.
Yes.
It doesn't fit into the regular regimen of things. But in my experience, when I've interviewed police officers about their ghost stories, they're usually reluctant, but once they start, they can't stop.
Oh yeah.
And in my experience, because they won't even go as far as to say it's paranormal a lot of times. They just don't have an answer.
Right.
They don't just give in. They don't just say, well, it was a ghost. They're just like, and the child. One of my favorite stories is in Fort Riley, Kansas, military police interviewing a woman. He's sitting there and he's playing with this girl he assumes is the woman's daughter. He's like, winking and, having a back and forth with her and doing this. And finally he's like, so what's your daughter's name? And the woman was like, Alex? Oh, Alex. And she's like, no, she's in college. What are you doing? And he just like went flush. And he kept asking her, so there's no girl, you're not babysitting? There's not a little girl. She's
wow,
like, no,
yes.
There's no little girl here. And the interesting thing about Fort Riley, Kansas, the officers' row, is these are buildings from the 1800s. All of these old, kind of almost like mansion-like buildings for the officers. Old and hard. Kansas life was hard, and when they were settling it, the winters were brutal.
Yes.
There were still a lot of conflicts going on. You were right on the frontier, and here you had families living in these houses, and any number of reasons a child might die in them. But I remember him being so very against saying it was a ghost. He just was like, I could not explain that child, but it was not see-through. It was not, because he was still of the mind that there was a child in the building. And he was interacting with it.
Yeah. The other type of people that you should interact with if you're going ghost hunting is the people who live near the haunted location.
Yeah, absolutely. They hear all the stories.
Yes.
They really do. When JT and I went up to West Virginia, we went to the Greenbrier Ghost's grave because we did we told the whole story of it. We went to tell the story by her grave and whatnot, because they have a really nice little headstone for her nowadays. And so when we were leaving, this guy who's lived up the road from this little church for his entire life, he goes, y'all looking for the ghost? And we're like, yes, actually. And so he gave us the most fascinating story because his sister, helped fundraise to get the Greenbrier Ghost headstone replaced and whatnot. But he was actually able to tell us her home where she was murdered. And that was not on the internet anywhere. Yeah. And so basically he's like, oh yeah, you just go this way and this way and this way and this way. And so we're following the video. We're like, okay, he said turn right at this bridge and whatnot. And
keep going when it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere.
Well, and we were like, there's no way. Because we ended up going down this super odd, unmarked dirt path, and lo and behold, he led us right to it. And so we were able to get that really cool shot of being like, this was the house. This was where the murder would happen. And so like, just cool experiences like that. And he didn't have to talk to us, but he like, had so much information that I would have never been able to find on the internet. So talk to the locals. They know things.
The locals know things.
Especially the older folks, because the ones who've lived there their whole life, they got some stories usually. But yeah. This has been fun though. Thank you guys
thanks so much for coming out. And it's fascinating because it was an internet sensation. The security footage that was played, I saw it on YouTube long before anything. You went through several name changes of which made it all the more mysterious. It was like, oh, he's gone. Well, I don't know.
Everybody thought I was dead, or I went to prison.
It was like, oh my. So it's amazing to meet you and to sit down with you because
you guys are awesome.
Of the entire world. Of ghost hunting and phenomena, it's always fascinating when somebody is as close as you are.
Absolutely, and maybe we can do an investigation sometime.
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely.
We're down. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, para-junkies out there, if you want to see us do an investigation, let us know. But cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and making the drive over here. We are going to be back this week with some more fun content about Savannah and Q&As and all that stuff. If you haven't become a para-junkie on Patreon, definitely consider doing that. Make sure to follow us on TikTok at The Savannah Underground and our new Instagram, The Most Haunted City on Earth. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.